talking away in the background. So we welcome Richard Vankoningsveld here today. He's with Legal Aid Queensland Library. He's been a law librarian for over 12 years and has worked quite in a few different places with the law firms McCulloch Robertson, Hopgood and Gannon and Minter Ellison, as well as the Queensland Law Society Library. And he's directly involved with the Australian Law Librarians Association for many years and is currently the membership coordinator. So beware, he'll be out sort of touting for new members, I expect, as the evening progresses. His current position really focuses on training and technical systems. And in his own time, he's an amateur, or maybe at work, he's an amateur programmer, and he's got his Twitter handle there, and that's on the Blackboard site for you. So, hello, Richard.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm well.
Thank you for, yeah, great. Thank you for joining us. Our participants met a few other people, so Alex and Larissa and Carol last week, and they were sort of in different types of law library. So what we want to try and sort of talk to you about is how you, given the experience you've got across those different libraries, how your life in legal aid and how in the legal research environment that might be a little bit different. But just to talk about yourself a little bit, sort of, how did you get into law librarianship? What drove you to consider a career in this area?
Yeah, okay, so I have to say it was really luck more than anything that got me into law libraries, and libraries at all actually. As you may detect, I'm not Australian, I'm from the UK, and I moved here about 16 years ago. I studied something completely different, ceramics, so I was a ceramicist and a glassmaker before I came here, and then I lucked out in that my partner's best friend was a lawyer at Minter Ellison, and one of their library technicians went on sick leave for 3 months, and they needed a temp, so I got the job just because I knew a lawyer there, which probably doesn't happen that much, especially not anymore.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and then really, I just found that it was complete luck, really. And I found that I'd always kind of been interested in libraries, but I'd never worked in a law library. Obviously, I never worked in a library. I didn't know anything about law, but I found immediately that I just sort of loved it, and I really enjoyed the kind of just the way, the type of work that we were doing, and it just kind of snowballed from there, really, and I got lots of opportunity to do my studies, so I did my library tech diploma and all that stuff, and yeah, it just kind of went from there. Yeah. So I was very lucky, I guess. Yeah, I'm not sure I can say too much else.
I'm just interjecting for a minute because I can see that Jill's internet connection has just closed down. So I might just get you to turn on.
I'm sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't know what, it's, and of course when it slows right down I can't do anything about it. Okay, am I clear at the moment? Hopefully, I'm not quite sure whether it's... Okay, I'm clear at the moment. Good.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, actually, I sort of ended up in libraries much the same way as well, sort of from left field, and not expecting ever to know anything about that. So that's great. So you've obviously been able to develop and sort of build those your interests and skills as well. So which is good. So looking at your current role.
Yeah.
You mentioned that you've got sort of training and the technical side of things. So can you sort of just outline and provide some details about what your day looks like and how the legal research side fits into all of that?
Yes, I can. So this is my job description on paper. So I design, develop, manage and maintain the in-house library databases at Legal Aid. I assess training need and then design and deliver legal research training programs to our staff. I provide current awareness services and market library services to our staff, and contribute to the planning and development and review of library policies and procedure. And then actually way down the list, I provide reference and research services to our staff.
And
so that's me on
Is that
paper.
down the list in terms of reality?
Well, it actually is a little bit at Legal Aid. Yeah, so in reality, I spend an awful lot of my, well, a fair amount of my time doing quite routine tasks like data entry and quality control on other people's data entry, and just sort of day-to-day kind of, yeah, data entry related stuff. I have, in the last 12 months, I'd say, done an awful lot more training, more than I've ever done before. So we've spent a lot of time at Legal Aid developing our training programs, or rather I should say redeveloping our training programs. We've done some proper training needs analysis and stuff like that, and then developed programs out of that. So I've spent a lot of my time doing that and then delivering the training. I spend a fair bit of my time doing technical stuff as well, so doing database development and some coding, so some HTML and JavaScript, and we use DBText, which is like a library database platform. So I do a lot of DBText work, and research is a bit down the list at Legal Aid. Okay. We do far less research than I've ever done anywhere else, and I think that's mainly because the culture at Legal Aid is very, it's very much lawyers are expected to do their own research, and also a lot of the work that lawyers do at Legal Aid doesn't necessarily require a lot of research.
Okay, right.
They do a lot of what I guess you could call, for want of a better word, low-end legal work. Okay. Like in terms of, they do like stuff like duty lawyer, so they provide a duty lawyer service. So if you get arrested and you end up in court and you can't afford a lawyer, or it's it's a summary offence, so it's in the magistrate's court, then you can get Legal Aid lawyer to advise you and represent you, and they just don't have the time or the need to do a lot of research a lot of the time. So
what's the focus? Where you're doing the training? So where you're doing training, what's the main focus of the work that you're doing there?
It's legal research training. So it's how to use the different databases. So how to use we have a lot of our own in-house databases, quite specialist case law databases, like comparable sentences for criminal law and some family law, like a domestic violence one, and there's some anti-discrimination one for our civil law team. So it's how to use those databases, and then how to use, your LexisNexis, Westlaw, CCH, how to research case law, sort of, like how to know if a case is still good law, sort of thing, how to research legislation, stuff like that. So very legal research oriented. I guess our sort of, I suppose one of our philosophies is teach them to do it themselves rather than do it for them, sort of thing. You may have dropped out again, Jill, have you?
Yeah, just checking. Jill, are you with us?
Yes, okay, yeah. No, sorry, it's been coming and going a little bit my end at the moment, I'm sorry.
I should say though, I should say that's completely different to all my other previous jobs where I've done almost nothing but legal research.
Right, yeah. that's what I was trying to sort of, with my flaky audio was going to ask. So you find it's quite different compared to the law firm in terms of that. And is that through the sort of organisational side of, well, as you say, the clients are actually involved in different types of work compared to what happens in a law firm?
Yeah, it is that, but I think it is also a bit of a culture thing. Like in the private firms, I think it's more expected that lawyers can just, you know, they're there to do lawyery things, and the library's there to do research for them as and when they need it.
Right. Great. Okay, now that sort of makes sense. So what's the range of resources that you subscribe to? How, you know, sort of, would you consider a comfortable budget, or is that an issue for you?
Well, yeah, we probably have a reasonably comfortable budget, and it hasn't been cut like a lot of, I know, private firms have had their budgets slashed pretty badly in recent times. Ours is pretty stable, but we just certainly don't have a luxurious budget, but we also get quite good deals from the publisher because of the nature of the organisation, because we're a benevolent organisation, as they call it. You know, we're sort of, they give us good deals, and also because we have quite niche areas, so we don't need to subscribe to a broad range of products across a lot of subject areas, because we only really do criminal and family and a very niche amount of civil law. And it's really civil law where all the public, you know, a lot of the sort of niche publications lie, and we don't really generally need to subscribe to those. So,
okay.
And we're right across the road from the Supreme Court Library, so we can always go across there if we really need something that we don't have.
Right, that's very convenient, obviously.
Yes.
To do that. So great. So is there anything else about the clients that you can tell us about, given, you know, compared with sort of your work in other areas?
Yeah, so I guess I've already mentioned that they do have a very narrow field of interest, I think, compared to most. I think, like, you know, the big firms that have libraries, they're generally what they call the full service firms, so they basically do everything, all kinds of law, including, you know, all sorts of civil law, like corporate law and all that stuff. We really do criminal law, family law, and some niche areas of civil, like employment, like unfair dismissal, anti-discrimination, and some consumer protection. So we're very niche. That said, we do have, I think it's the biggest criminal law practice in the state. So we're big on criminal. We are.
How many lawyers actually work within legal aid?
There's about 320, I think. Something like that.
Okay, I hadn't realised it was. I hadn't realised it was so big.
Plus, we also have a lot of what we call our preferred supplier network. So we actually outsource a lot of work to private firms who do work on our behalf.
Right. So are you then supporting them sort of in their places of work, or would they then have their own librarians or libraries that they'd be accessing that way? Is there some interaction?
There is it's very minor. We don't do research for them, but they do have access to some of our databases, and they have access to our library catalogue and stuff like that. But we have in the past offered them training as well when we train our regional lawyers. So I should say as well, it's very geographically diverse as well. We have something like, I think it's 13 offices in the state, all over the place. So Mount Isa and Cairns and everywhere. So yeah, they're spread around. So when we go to those offices, we sometimes train the preferred suppliers, but generally they're on their own, and generally they're not big firms, so they don't usually have libraries. So I think a lot of them probably rely on the Supreme Court Library a lot. And also, again, they're doing like GT lawyer, so they probably don't need to do that much research. You know,
okay. So what does that stand for, GT?
Duty lawyer, so that's...
Duty, duty, sorry, I heard it as GT. Duty. Okay, duty lawyer, yes, I understand. Okay, I'm with you. Right, okay. So do you think there's anything new on the horizon in terms of the provision of legal information in your area? Things changing?
Not a great deal. We have we've done some. We've done things like we have iPads that our staff use, and we've done things like so on the iPads there's apps that the publishers provide, like LexisNexis have a thing called LexisNexis Red, which is like an offline loose leaf thing that you can put on your iPad, so it means you can download Carter's criminal law onto your iPad and use it without internet and that sort of thing. We've done some experiments with that kind of stuff with our staff, but they're not, the uptake hasn't been amazing on that.
Okay. You surprised?
I think, in a way, it's interesting. We were actually kind of early adopters of it, but I think we were too early, really. And the iPads at the time, they weren't really geared up for enterprise sort of use. They're very much what's the word? Like a consumer model. Now they're much better, but there's a lot of annoying features with it, and we're also kind of hampered by our IT quite a lot at Legal Aid. They're not particularly forward thinking, so that hampers a lot of stuff. I know a lot of the private firms are doing amazing stuff with just the way they. Not so much the provision of legal research services, although there is some stuff around that, but just generally, like, the kind of mobility thing is huge, obviously. I went to McCullough Robertson again, went back to McCullough Robertson a couple of months ago for a meeting, and since I'd left, they've now, their whole firm, everyone in the whole firm has a laptop now. No one has a desktop anymore. They all have a laptop, and they can go to a meeting room or whatever, and just immediately stream their laptop straight to a data projector, and do a presentation, that sort of thing. It's just this really amazing sort of seamless technology thing that they've got going. So big firms are probably way ahead of Legal Aid in terms of that sort of stuff.
Right.
We're a bit old school like that.
Yes, that's. I think very often there is a distinction between services offered in government through to just some of the IT aspects, which is of concern, obviously. And I've been doing some work with sort of Commonwealth government in Canberra. And they are really light years behind with some of their operating systems and the ability to makes it very difficult for librarians to have the current offerings from the publishers when the actual infrastructure isn't there to support it, which is
absolutely
a very difficult problem. It's done. Well, maybe there might be some questions from some of our participants. Anybody there got some questions or some issues that you are wondering about that you'd like to give to Richard? Or whether Shirin's got any questions? Everyone's very quiet today. Yes. So is that Sarah Jane? Were you trying to? Was that one? I thought there was a question coming through.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes. Who's speaking?
Richard, I was just...
Sarah Jane.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, good. I was going to ask you, you said that you had officers, say, in Mount Isa, and yet they may not have a library out there. How would you be able to support them with your library service in, say, Brisbane to Mount Isa?
Yeah, so in the case of Mount Isa, it's a very small office. There's only about, I think there's 2 or 3 staff there, but yeah, we do, we service all our regional offices. So we have an intranet, which is organisation-wide. So all of our library resources are all accessible through the intranet. So we, and it's all operates on IP fixed, so they don't have logins or anything like that. So they can get to all the vast majority of our resources through the intranet wherever they are. And then we also will do research for them the same as we would with people in Brisbane. They just email us or give us a call and with their requests, and we email them stuff back.
Oh, good. Okay.
It's yeah, it doesn't really. It's sort of we don't have that many people who actually visit our library. We do almost all of our work through email, which is not uncommon in law firms.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter whether they're in an office next door or whether they're sort of thousands of kilometres away. It's still
no, they could be anywhere. And like certainly the big firms, like they've got offices overseas, and they still do work for them in the same way they would any of their other staff. Yeah.
So is there a network of legal aid type of organisations across the country?
There is. It's pretty loose though. There's quite close ties between the actual organisations, but between the libraries it's a bit looser. But we do have some relationships with them, and we share resources with them. All the different legal aid offices around the country can access, again, some of our databases. But again, the nature of legal aid, I think, seems to be that it's mostly very state-based. So there's not there's not that much need to share resources library-wise, because we're either doing state or
because of the statutes. Yeah, so that's because of the statute. So it's the criminal law of Queensland, if that's your core business. Then it's state-based from that.
Yeah, that's right. And most of what our lawyers are interested in is Queensland decisions, for example. It would be very, very rare that someone would come to us and say, can you find me, some obscure Northern Territory case, that would mean we might need to talk to Northern Territory people. Right.
So yeah. So that obviously is quite different from the firms and from law schools and things like that, which are crossing over all the jurisdictions. Do you support community legal centres? We haven't really talked very much about them, but sort of I did some work with QUT, which is a Queensland organisation. So could you talk us through that a little bit?
Yeah. So they all get their funding from legal aid, I believe. So we do have a lot of ties with them, and we have a whole department that's dedicated to looking after them. But the library, again, doesn't do any work for them, really. They're kind of on their own. We're very much focused on just doing work for our legal aid people.
Right, okay. So I think that was actually part of the nature of some of these community legal centres, where there's a lot of pro bono work and volunteer work happening, a lot of students coming in to sort of learn a little bit about the trade, so to speak. But by very nature, they're fairly ad hoc. You know, they were having, QUT, for example, was having quite a lot of document management problems because of so many different people and no systems in place and things like that. So
yeah.
I just wondered whether they could turn to you for sort of training or something like that to get their students up to speed in different areas. But,
yeah, but like, it's not something that's happened while I've been there that I'm aware of, although, so we do, like, they work, so Legal Aid does work with them to provide CPD, or CLE, is it? So Community Legal Education, so they'll work with the community legal centres to, you know, develop CLE content and stuff.
Yes.
But,
yeah,
I know what you mean, Jill. It's like, a lot of those centres are just kind of loosely organised chaos.
Yeah. I did say that.
But, and QUT is probably one of the more organised ones, I'd say.
Yes, that's right. So,
yeah,
very good-hearted, but there's some
absolutely. Unfortunately, I guess it's just a resourcing thing. We don't have the resources to be able to do that.
Okay. Well, I don't know whether you've got any advice. Obviously, you know, the people we've got in the room, you've met previous cohorts and everything, but what sort of advice you might offer sort of aspiring law librarians?
So I would say, this is my plug, get involved with your association. And that goes for current law librarians too. If there's any, I don't know if there's any current law librarians doing the course, is there? But, so there's two associations that's sort of relevant to Queensland for law librarianship. There's Australian Law Librarians Association, and then there is also, in Queensland, we don't have, all the other states have a division of ALA, which it's called. We don't have one anymore, we used to, but there is the ALIA LLQ, which is ALIA Law Librarians Queensland group. So I would encourage everyone to join ALA for sure, and it doesn't matter what state you're in. If you join ALA Limited, ALA National, and then that automatically joins you up to your state. And then if you're in Queensland, I'd encourage you to join ALIA LLQ as well. ALA, it does cost money, but if you're a student, I think it's $50 a year. And ALIA LLQ doesn't cost you anything to join, so you should definitely do that. So the reasons I'd say to do that is because it will connect you with pretty much every law librarian in the country, basically. So it's excellent for getting your name out there and trying to get a job if that's what you're trying to do, or just, you know, network, meet people, and then they also offer a lot of CPD and stuff like that. So it's really worth doing, I would say. I wouldn't have be anywhere near where I am now without having been involved with ALA, that's for sure. I would also say, so I have written down some other things that I think are really important. Do your current awareness. So join, even if you don't join ALA, you can still join the ALA e-list, and you can join the ALA LinkedIn group, and you can join all sorts of other LinkedIn groups which are law library related. Read your law librarian type journals, blogs. There's the Australian Law Librarian, the American AALL does all sorts of, just publishes all the time. So does the UK one. So I'd encourage you to do all that sort of, you know, read your journals, blogs, follow people on Twitter if you're on Twitter, and just, you know, be aware of what's happening. I think one of the really big skills that everyone should have is basically, and it sounds, I guess it's a bit obvious almost, but document creation. I think is really important. So upskill yourself on using Word and Excel and PowerPoint. You'll definitely need them. Skill yourself up on searching databases, LexisNexis, Westlaw, CCH, things like Timebase, and then, you know, OSLI, all your legislation databases, ComLaw, or whatever it's called now. Are you still there, Jill? You may have dropped out.
Sure, yeah, yep, yep.
Oh, good.
That's right.
I would say not everyone needs to do this, but I have done a lot of self-education on writing code, and I think that is, if you're interested in that, it's certainly a good skill to have. If you want to learn more about that, I've just found out that I'm going to be presenting about that at the upcoming ALIA Queensland mini conference in a couple of weeks. So come along to that.
Come along to that as well, yeah. Yeah. I think certainly your advice about the different tools is a really important one, and obviously that's what we want to try and sort of work through in the weeks ahead, to look at all of those different resources and become familiar with them. So
if you can get access to them, which I guess everyone on the course will have access to them. You can't.
That's right. Yes. While they're that's one of the big bonuses, that while they are part of the QUT community, then they've got access to everything here. So it's a good chance to sort of delve as deeply as possible into those, but also to become familiar with the common law and OSLIs and things that don't actually cost subscription fees, etc. So
yes. And I think even if you've got, like, in Queensland anyway, state library, you can join the state library, and I think you can get access to LexisNexis, at least some of it, through your subscription to that. So even if once the course is finished, you keep practicing, keep your hand in. And Lexis is going through a big change, well, it sort of already has. It's staggered, so it's going to change a lot soon. So it's good to keep up with, when platforms change, which they like to do.
Yes, I think that's, I can remember once sort of going back after 6 weeks and every single interface had changed, They can do it all, the interfaces like to do it all together as well. So
they do,
I agree that
when one does it, they
competition
have to do it,
that's right. Well, I suppose you could say there's actually sort of good user groups, aren't there, with some of these platforms as well. But that's another way of getting involved with law librarians who are interested in that sort of communication. I know sort of a couple of the big platforms, the sort of publishing houses, encourage law librarians to get involved and to have that sort of dialogue around some of their products.
Oh, definitely, yeah. And so just recently Westlaw they have been trialing doing like a sort of revamp of their site, which is responsive, so it's all mobile friendly, and they put an email, or they put a post out on their LinkedIn group for people to to test it. And so they're really keen to, and LinkedIn I'd say is the place to go for that sort of stuff really. And actually, although in LexisNexis they have their thing called the Knowledge Network, I think it's called, which is like all these forums and stuff that you can go on and get involved with product development, and they're really keen. Yeah.
So that's a really good way for students, for participants in this course to start learning more about it from the inside, I think, as well. So I'd encourage you to find out what's happening in your areas around that. Yeah,
definitely. I would say as well, other things that people should think about is think about doing some sort of training qualification, because it seems to me like law librarians are doing more and more training. It's definitely, I think, it's a big area that law libraries are going to find a home in, and a place in. So I think, and obviously if you're working in a uni library, you're kind of already all over that. But if you're going to be working in a private firm, I'd recommend thinking about doing some sort of training qualification. And I would also say study some law as well.
Yes. That's an interesting one where if you read the United States literature, they really do encourage lawyers to have law librarians have a legal qualification. But that hasn't been so much of a thing here. Although we do know, and Shirin is an example here of somebody who has studied law and then moves into librarianship, so the other way. But
yeah, and I do know of a few people that have done that, but not that many. But I'd say, you don't necessarily, I'd say, if you have got a law degree, amazing, you're going to be, super employable, I would say. But I don't think you really need to go full on and have a law degree. But even if it's just, like, for example, I haven't really done this that much myself, but at the moment I'm doing a MOOC that Melbourne Uni have just started doing, a law for non-lawyers. That sort of thing. Yep. And there's a lot of, even if you go and buy a few or borrow a few of the really sort of basic textbooks, like Laying Down the Law is the classic for Australia, and read that. And then maybe, if you are studying your degree, then it's, an information degree, but if you can, think about doing a couple of law electives, even if that sort of thing is possible, I would say. Yeah. Do this course, because like I was
they put the money where the mouth is for that one, I think.
I'm probably talking to the wrong people, but like I was just thinking earlier on, listening to your lecture, I wish I had had a lecture like that when I first worked in a law library, because that's just gold.
The fundamentals. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
Thank you. That's great. Excellent. Well, if we can just check, we might have a bit of an early finish today, because as I said earlier, I am in The Hague and I'm running workshops starting in about 20 minutes. So all my participants from across the world have all jetted in, and so I need to go and do some meet and greets and make sure that my head's in the right space to move on to that workshop as well. So are there any final questions from our participants? Anything you'd like to ask or comment on or anything like that? Well, I really don't think that we can let you off early, but there's really plenty for you to do. So before I finally thank Richard for his time, work through the materials on Blackboard. Okay, there is so much there that has been put together. So just dipping in and out. You don't need to absorb it all, but become familiar with the type of resources. We begin to introduce you to some of the different databases. There are links there for you to look at some of their training materials and for those. There's some exercises there I mentioned earlier, certainly around the citation. Go and have a play and put things together. You don't need to submit anything formally, but we will do a debrief at the beginning of class next week. And hopefully everything's on track if you're interviewing somebody for assignment 1. The ideas that have come up from the panel discussion and through our interview with Richard as well might give you some further ideas about what type of interview you'd like to conduct with a practicing law librarian, which again is an opportunity for networking, etc. So there's secondary sources is our main topic then next week. But I'd like to thank you, Richard, for joining us. It was great to learn all about a really different environment where legal research comes into play, but also the push towards so much of the technology that is sort of linking all the clients with the different services as well. So thank you very much. There's some really pleasant comments there about from the different people around things. So really good.
You're welcome.
So we look forward to keeping in touch, and as membership coordinator, hopefully some of you will get in touch with Richard as well that way.
Yeah.
So that,
feel free to like if anyone does have any questions, tweet me or email me, or if you're interested in ALA or ALIA LLQ, send me an email and I'm happy to talk to you more about that.
That's fantastic.
For sure.
That's great. Great. Thank you very much indeed. So
no
it's
problem.
a really interesting field, and that's it. Yeah, I mean, we just talked about legal research, but we'll say the differences, as you sort of pulled out, between what the law firms are doing, what's happening in law schools, and what's happening in sort of community law centres as well. It's quite a broad brush. So you can find your own niche in many different areas, I'm quite sure. So,
definitely can.
Great. Okay, well, thanks everybody. Have a productive week. I should be back in Brisbane again next Wednesday, so on home territory. So I look forward to catching up with you all then. But have a good week until then. And thank you, Sharon, for looking after it all as well. And for Kate for being in the background. Okay, we'll see you all next week.
Thanks, Jill. Thanks, Kate and Trin.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, thanks, Richard, so much.
Bye.